For 20 years, Eli Harper lived alone in a sandstone cabin carved into the side of a mesa in the Arizona high desert. Time passed in wind and dust. His cabin had no electricity, no phone, no running water, only the flicker of an oil lamp and the creak of wooden beams in the night. The land around him was dry and quiet, scattered with yucca, sagebrush, and memories too heavy to carry into town. Each morning, as the sun stretched its first amber light across the cliffs, Eli walked to the edge of the mesa. There, he whispered names into the wind. No one ever heard them but the canyon birds and the bones of the desert. The locals, mostly from the White Mountain Apache tribe, had learned to leave him alone. Some remembered him from decades past, before he went into the hills, before he disappeared into silence. The elders knew his face, knew the guilt in his eyes, and so they let him be. He harmed no one, he took little, he lived like a ghost. But on the morning of the spring equinox, something changed. The air had that charged stillness that comes before a storm, or a story. Eli was chopping firewood when he heard it, footsteps. Not animals, not a lone hiker, deliberate, soft, human. He turned slowly, axe in hand. 3 women stood at the base of the path that led to his cabin. They were wrapped in woven shawls of red and turquoise, their long black hair braided with bits of shell and stone. Their faces were solemn, unreadable, eyes dark with something older than time. They couldn't have been more than 25, yet they carried themselves like they knew centuries. They said nothing. He watched as they climbed the last few feet up the rocky slope, their moccasins kicking dust from the trail. When they reached the flat space before his door, they knelt, quietly, gracefully, as if it had been rehearsed. He stared, stunned. The women did not speak. They did not look up. They waited, heads bowed. Eli's throat tightened. No one had come this close to him in 2 decades. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. What could he say? The wind tugged gently at his beard, as if reminding him he was still real. The canyon was silent. He looked at the 3 kneeling figures, at the way their shadows pooled around them like spilled ink, and something inside him stirred. Not desire, not fear, recognition. Of what? He wasn't sure. But it was old. It was waiting. That night, for the first time in over a decade, Eli Harper lit a fire outside his cabin. The flames danced low in the wind, casting flickering shadows against the red stone. He sat on a worn wooden crate, his weathered hands resting on his knees. Across from him, the 3 Apache women sat on folded blankets. The air smelled faintly of mesquite and dry earth. Above them, the stars emerged one by one, bright and cold and endless. No one spoke at first. The fire cracked softly. A coyote howled somewhere far below the mesa. The night was alive in its quietness. Then one of the women, the oldest, began to speak. Her voice was firm and clear, rich with tradition. She told a story about a woman who turned into a hawk after her husband was taken by the river. Another joined in, laughing as she recalled how the spirits of the mountain once tested a young warrior by hiding his shadow. They spoke in English sometimes, in Apache at others. Their voices wove stories like songs, filling the air with echoes of ancestors and dreams. Eli listened. He didn't interrupt. He didn't move. He just sat there, stunned by the sound of voices, of people, of life, something he hadn't let near in years. The 3rd woman had not spoken much. She sat slightly apart from the others, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. Her gaze was fixed on the stars above, as if she were reading something only. She could see. She had said her name once earlier in a soft voice, Tacklish. After a long stretch of silence, she finally turned to Eli. The firelight made her eyes shine like obsidian. I saw you in a dream, she said. Her voice was quiet, but steady. You were crying beside a grave that wasn't there. Eli froze. The flames popped. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. He didn't respond, but his jaw clenched. He felt the blood in his face, the weight in his chest. She wasn't guessing. She knew. You weren't burying someone, she continued. You were asking to be buried with them. Eli lowered his head, his breath caught in his throat. Tacklish didn't press him. She simply looked at him as if the desert had handed her his soul and she was holding it gently, not to keep it, but to let him see it. By dawn, he had chosen. He said nothing out loud. But he made his choice the way old men do, quietly, with eyes and hands. He laid his rifle down on the altar of stone near his cabin, where he used to pray during storms. Then he reached out and touched Tacklish's hand. Her fingers were warm, real, alive, and for the first time in 20 years, Eli Harper smiled. Not because he found love in the way he once imagined it, but because something heavier than loneliness had been lifted. He had been seen, not as a ghost, not as a broken man, but as someone still worth forgiving.